In this video, I'm going to be answering your questions and bouncing off some of the comments people have made over the last few years on Shard TCG videos. And the goal of this video by the end is to come away a little bit more educated, a little bit wiser, and hopefully having a few laughs on the way. And I'd just like to say before we get started, thank you so much to each and every one of you that hit that subscribe button, because we've now hit over 2,000 subscribers. And really that is what inspired this video, because I thought of you hitting that subscribe button, leaving those comments, and I thought let's answer some of those comments on video as a little bit of a special talk TCG. So I hope this format goes quite well, and if you've got more questions for me, put them in the comments section and I might make a second one. So the first comment that I'm reading today is by Random Rants 148, and it says, do I need a story for a TCG gig or put in beta? The thing is with TCGs is they are a lot more gameplay focused. A little bit of a background story is always useful, but it isn't really necessary. If you want to try and draw people in, people will eventually become more interested in the lore of your story. Putting little snippets in, little teasers to just entice them, just to satisfy that hunger is always useful, but a huge elaborate story isn't always necessary. It is mostly the gameplay, but it is all about how you want to strategize your TCG. Do you want to divert your attention into the story driven part? It could be a good ongoing comic series or something like that. But in terms of story, you can also do something as very little as just flavor text on the cards. Just a little sentence under the card that just says a little bit more about it. Gives you an idea of where it's from or what it's doing or what its intentions are. Just a little something to give that player a taste of the world being built around your TCG. Okay, and the next comment I have is from RaySandrexia941. So it's either Rays and Rare XXia or RaySandrexia or something in between. So sorry for butchering names. I'm probably going to be doing a lot of that today. A lot of you out there have some weird names. But here's the comment anyway. How do you get past the motivation barrier? I usually hit a wall when I have to make art. So for getting around the motivational barrier for me is by splitting your TCG into different segments and finding out which one you are most motivated to do at that time. So one part of your TCG could be art. Maybe today you don't feel like drawing any art. That's fair enough. Another part of your TCG could be lore, backstory, flavor text, little segments, story, world building, things like that. That is another segment of your TCG. And another category for development is card stats. Sometimes your cards need to be rebalanced. You might have a list of notes from last time you play tested, which is another section. But yes, you can take a look at the card stats or play test at the same time even, make some notes and then go through your cards and actually change those numbers, change those effects that seem broken or underpowered or overpowered. So to sum it up, break up your TCG into different sections, because sometimes you're not in an artistic mood, sometimes you're not in a number crunching mood, and sometimes you're not in a world building mood. Just do one of those things. Usually something starts to flow as long as you push yourself just to do the first word or the first number or the first line of art. Either way, you tend to get yourself going again. So I hope that helps. And of course, if any of these comments are helping you, don't forget to hit that like button, because it lets me know I'm doing the right thing when I'm making these videos. Alright, and the next comment is by Mythically Enchanted. And they have said, I've been making a TCG, but I'm not sure how to build a community around it. I feel very stuck and I've been feeling like I should quit and work on different ideas I've had instead. So a community, for the most part, takes time to build. Yes, we would all love it if our games just blew up all of a sudden and we had like hundreds or thousands of players suddenly playing our game. And yes, it does happen as well. So why isn't my TCG doing that? Because it is the exception to the rule. There has to be some sort of snowball effect that happens. So my advice would be, if you believe in your project, if you believe in your idea, and if you believe in yourself, then yes, keep pushing for your TCG. If you don't believe in one of those things, then you should stop. And I know that sounds daunting, but that's the truth. You have to have these factors to be able to push forward. If you don't believe that you are capable of building a community around a TCG, then you will be playing a 2-player game with one person, and that's yourself. So show some faith in your project, show some faith in yourself, and if you love that project, somebody else will feel the same way. So just keep working on it, push it, promote it, and eventually it will start to get some traction. Now, you may not ever get the thousands of fans that your game probably deserves, but you will get that small group of people, that community built around your game that will come and play your game. If it's once a week or once a month, they are coming back, they are loyal, and they love that game, and that is something special and shouldn't be ignored. So next up we have Extinction 710. I'm making a TCG, but my mom thinks it's a waste of time and I don't know what to do. Okay, so we've got a parent that has an opinion. Fair enough. Your parent is entitled to an opinion. If I had a child and they were devoting too much time to one thing, I would be a little bit concerned about it as well if other things are starting to fall away. So say if you're in school and you're working on a TCG, but your grades are depleting, yes, I would be concerned. So this comment really needs a lot more context. It is good to show that you can commit to something. So if you are spending too much time on this, it also means that you have the capabilities of committing heavily to other things. It is all about time management at the end of the day. Yes, some parents will be like that. Some parents will be free thinkers and go, my child is creative, I will let them do what they want. They will find their own way in life. Really, a parent needs to be a little bit in the middle. Yes, embrace your child's creativity, but also make sure that other things aren't falling away. Whether that's homework, chores, or other responsibilities, your life needs balance. Okay, next comment. Rejan Acel Aguero 2264 has said, board games give you no TCG experience. I am telling you now, unless you're talking about solitaire or so. So, it depends on how you're viewing this, because in a way, yes, you are correct. You don't get any TCG experience by playing a board game. This is true. But that doesn't mean that you can't take your experience from board games and implement them into a TCG. And this doesn't just go for board games. Anything from life you can take and actually implement it into a TCG. Now, I'm not saying that all of the ideas are going to be brilliant ideas. I mean, if you're walking through a shop and you're looking at all the different types of lights in the shop and you go, I'm going to make a TCG about different lights, you know, I'm going to have LED versus halogen bulbs and stuff like that, it's probably not going to be a good idea. But taking a look at board games, video games, or even classic playground games and trying to take an idea from that and implement it into a TCG that you've never seen before, it's a fresh idea, it's a fresh outlook. You know it's a working formula because you've seen it work there. That doesn't guarantee that moving it over will make it work, but it's worth a go. So an example of an idea that I had was taking a look at Pokemon Go and their combat system. It is very simple, you're just spam clicking, but it is a lot of little hits to charge up your big hit. And I was asking myself, could I move that into a TCG? What if every card had 2 attacks, and perhaps the big attack came with the charged effect or something like that? So you would do little hit, little hit, little hit, and then once you have enough charges, you use the big hit. That is translating something from a video game, a mobile platform, into a TCG. So the short answer is take your inspiration from anywhere and everywhere, because the whole world is there to inspire you. And Woku99 says, amazing art. I'm curious, were you ever into Magic the Gathering? And the truth is, I played a little bit of Magic the Arena, but I've never actually owned any Magic the Gathering cards. I know it sounds like a massive sin, but here I am. So I used to see the ads on the television when I was a kid of like the Magic the Gathering, where like the kid would have the overgrowth card, and then it would bring like the big orc would come stomping in those like classic ads. You can still see them on YouTube if you look up old Magic the Gathering ads. And I always really wanted to play. But I was a quiet kid, I never really asked for much. So I don't really think I asked for Magic the Gathering cards. And I never saw anybody else playing it at the time when I was around. I wasn't in that sort of circle at the time. And now, years later, I've made it so far that I feel like I've just missed the boat with Magic the Gathering. I know I went through a Yu-Gi-Oh phase, and that was at a stage where I was able to go out and buy my own cards. And I got into this gatekeeping attitude where I would only play Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic the Gathering was rubbish, and I wouldn't even give it a go. But I have enjoyed a few games of Magic the Gathering Arena, and I think that's quite good because it is a lot more space efficient to not have another box of TCG cards about the house, you know. I'm more of a distant enjoyer of Magic the Gathering. I don't want to get too close because I don't have the storage space. Alright, and Ketic Glider 9188 says, I love your videos, man. My friend and I are trying to create a game together and we both watch your content. Well, thank you very much, Ketic Glider. So the main part of the comment that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention was this genius quote that they put near the end. Being a game creator, you're playing against the players before they play against you. And I thought that was just great. I really hope that is one of their original comments because they deserve this sort of attention. So that is Celtic Glider. Being a game creator, you're playing against the players before they play against you. So yes, you are trying to think several turns ahead. You're trying to get into the players' minds and trying to figure out how they are going to act when you are creating the card itself. You have to see how that one card that you've made combines with all of the other cards that you've already created. And then you have to imagine somebody else, a different mindset, and how they want to use those cards. And it could be a completely different way to how you imagined. So yes, you are playing against the players before you even play against the players. I know they've said it better. I'll say it one more time for you. Being a game creator, you're playing against the players before they play against you. So that is the quote of the day. I love it. I love it. I love it. Right, and the next comment is by Mondo Poliz ___ 2856. Which company or method did you use to introduce Rarity into your booster packs? I saw a company explaining they would need to print 3 million cards. The whole idea is we are using the Game Crafter, which is what a lot of people are using in the homemade TCG community, and they have different sections of which you can display your cards. So we go with an 18 card format, and out of that format we break it up into 5 sections. So the first section, the first category is common cards, and we have 10 cards assigned to those common cards. So we put a lot of cards into that section, and 10 cards are selected from that pile to be common cards. The next section is uncommon, of which we have 5 cards. So then 5 cards in the booster packs will be uncommon. Now we have 3 cards remaining, and out of those 3 cards 2 of them are guaranteed rares, and the last one has the possibility of being a rare, an ultra rare, or even a legendary. So JBBB8VB says, no offense to all this, but you look like Mark Hoppus from Blink 182 and Stipe Miocic from UFC Fighter had a baby. So I'm going to put the 2 pictures up here. I'll let you decide. And Marvel Sandals 4228 has said, another good idea for high rarity cards are alternate art versions of cards that exist at low rarities, especially popular fan favorite cards. Card game players love to bling out their collection and decks with cool shiny cards whenever possible. Again, if you don't play a deck with the all art card and pull, you'll still be pleased because it's still very valuable. Best of all, it's okay if players who want them can't get full play sets for cheap. That's the point. They can always just use the low rarity cheaper versions instead. If they want to build a competitive deck, they can acquire the needed cards on a budget without any issues. The all arts are just a shiny collector's item for those willing to trade / pay more for them. And this is a really good point, and maybe TCG should be a little bit more like this in terms of the rarity slots being purely all art. There should always be cheaper options for players to actually get into the game and actually be competitive, because you don't want to try and price players out. It shouldn't be a pay to win game. You should be able to get a cluster of cards and have a chance. So I like this idea, and Richard and I have spoke about this with Shard, starting to introduce alt art cards as rarer options or as special options within structure decks as well, as just something fun for the fans to have. And that is always more important when you have a small TCG, a small community. You want everybody to feel involved, but you also want to be happy for the people to get rare alt arts and things like that. So you're getting a little bit of both this way. But let me know what you think in the comments section, because this, of course, is just my opinion. And sticking to the rare card topic, we have Bill the Chill 654, who has said, when designing rare cards, I like to think of them as cornerstones, as in players will put cards in their deck specifically because it plays well with this card. This also gives new players an anchor to help focus on their building. So I think what Bill the Chill is trying to say is, when you get that one rare card, it is the card that you start to build everything around. It becomes the focus, the crown centerpiece, or at least a large player, the quarterback of the team that is your TCG deck. And I think that's important too. It is important to keep a certain level of rarity, because with rarity ties in with value. If you had your favorite card but you ended up getting 10 copies from 10 packs, it suddenly doesn't feel as special. You know, you want to make sure that that rare card was a little bit hard to find. So out of the 10 packs, perhaps you got 1, maybe 2, and then you start to build your team around that with the more common cards that will tie in to that certain strategy. So I always think that's important. Like with anything, life is about balance. So you want things to be rare, but you don't want things to be too rare, but you also don't want things to be too common, because then nobody would care. You know, find the middle ground for you when making your own TCG. Okay, and Logan Quasar 5124 has said, WTF, you Brazilian? No. Autistic Board Gamer says, I'm waiting for this channel to start reviewing indie card games. Now, this is a tough one, because indie card games, if he's referring to the homemade TCG community, because that's also known as the indie TCG community, I think it's a little bit too close to home. If I start reviewing them, it means I start criticizing them, which means that things could get a little bit heated. So it's not something I'm really planning to do. On the other hand, he might just be referring to actual indie companies and their card games, smaller TCGs that way. That could be something I could get into if somebody was recommending certain card games and they were accessible to me. Then yes, I might actually review one or two of them. I'm not sure, but it's not something I have planned in the works. That's all I'm saying. And we have another one from Extinction 710. They say, how do you put climax and a good event structure in your TCG? Now that is a really good question. So something that we struggled with Shard TCG was that we found the games were dragging on a little bit too long. So we started introducing more game finisher cards. You know, we started playing more boss cards, as we also like to call them. And the idea of that is not power creep in the sense of numbers, but we are speed creeping the effects. We are making sure that the effects of our cards are focused on hurting the other player instead of setting up. A lot of our cards were based on setting up. But you can imagine when you're making the first set, you want to make sure that people can actually make the game work, which means you have a lot of setup cards. So set 2 has been a lot about game finishing cards. You know, cards that when you hit a card with Pierce, it's going to do double damage and things like that. So it starts to really speed up the end of the game. But the whole idea of that is they're the big cards. They're the cards you can't get out right away. So all I would say is make sure that you are pacing your game right. You do a lot of play testing and make sure that you have those game finishing cards, because you want your game to finish right before the point of boredom. Because if the game finishes right before the point of boredom, you will want to play another game. If the game gets beyond that and you get bored, you will want to play a different game. So the point is, make the game a little bit shorter than it should be, and the players will keep on playing. And a comment from Mondo Yikes. Love the TCG talk videos. Very inspiring content. Thank you, Mondo Yikes. I really do appreciate that. Hope there's more to come. One thing I'm always wondering / worried about with the mechanics of my own TCG is if they are too similar to another TCG out there. Now this is actually a bit debatable because there's an issue going on with Lorcana and one of the people that worked on the team who took the mechanics of Lorcana and started introducing them into another TCG that was being developed. Obviously this upset Disney because, you know, they've got a game in place and then somebody else is making a game practically identical. But the idea of mechanics is they cannot be trademarked, they cannot be copywritten. There's nothing there to do that because they are game mechanics. I mean, imagine if Wizards of the Coast years ago tried to copyright actually drawing a card. So any game that involved drawing a card from the deck meant that they could be sued by Wizards of the Coast, which means Magic the Gathering would be the only game that could actually draw a card from a deck. It would just be ridiculous. This is why you cannot copyright game mechanics themselves. And I suppose you can be worried that you're copying another game too much because you want your game to be unique. But a lot of the formats do work, so you want to do something that works. What I always recommend is you take one unique mechanic, one risk that you haven't seen within a TCG, and make it the main focal point of your TCG. So let's think of an example. Okay, new mechanic. So instead of having card draw at the start of your turn, you can only draw a card when you attack with a card. Now you've encouraged your game to be very, very aggressive because each player has to be able to attack to maintain card draw. This could be the main mechanic of your game. You know it's going to be a fast-paced TCG. You know it's going to be an aggressive TCG. It's not going to be like a game of chess where you're just moving pieces trying to figure each other out. You are going to be in the other player's face. So you know what kind of game is being built from that. And with that one unique mechanic, you could copy everything else from something else. You could mulligan at the start of your turn. You could have your shield card system like a lot of TCGs have. You can copy all of those and put it in, but it would still feel like a unique game because of that one focal point main mechanic, as long as you focus on that bit, then it becomes a unique TCG in a way. It's got that unique flavour. And Epic Underworlds 5693. Hi Epic Underworlds. One question: how do you balance making TCGs with work? It's tough sometimes, it's really tough. I know with my line of work, maybe it's a little bit easier because I'm not breaking up my day into different sections. That's because I do 12-hour shifts, which means I get more days off through the week. So if I have a good chunk of days off, I can focus a day on TCG making. So it's not like I'm coming in after work and then going and making a TCG. If I come in after work, I'm just going to relax, then go to sleep, and then get up and then start the day fresh. So that's how I do it. But really, we've all got the same hours, the same time in the day. It's just about managing your time. So I'm not sure if that helps, but that is my personal situation. Alright, so I hope everybody has been enjoying this video, and I've got one more comment to read out to you, and this is an important lesson for everybody. So, from lou.bo.studios, nice and extensive video, but I think you don't really understand the resource system if you think decent players in Hearthstone have cards from 1 to 8 mana in their decks, any more than Magic the Gathering players have 1 to 8 cost cards in theirs. That sounds like someone who barely played the game would say if they just analysed its rule set in a nutshell, which makes me question the validity of any point you brought up. And this is a good point, because yes, you shouldn't just follow people blindly. Even my words, you shouldn't just take what I say as gospel. Do your own research. It is very important that you do that. You know, and you can include me in your research, but always take everything I say with a pinch of salt, because I know I have got things wrong in the past. I know some of my opinions have changed in the past as well. And another factor is, in some of my videos, I do crop them down to try to make it more digestible for people to watch. So sometimes I don't get as elaborate as I would like to in some of these videos. And this is another factor that leads to some comments. You know, when I see some comments out there, I go, oh, but I meant that, you know, take it from context because of this bit. And there can be misunderstandings. Make sure to do your own research, form your own opinions, and always be an individual thinker. And this is probably one of the most important lessons you can have, not just for making a TCG, but also for going forward in life. You know, be an individual thinker. Try to analyze everything for yourself, because it is very crucial and important in this world. And with that, thank you very much. I'll be off now. See you next time. Goodbye.